Hey, I'm here, buddy, ready to go.
That's it. Sit right there. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Call the committee to order. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Senator Barfoot. Senator Butler. Senator Chambliss. Senator Figures. Senator Orr. Senator Roberts. Senator Fortier. Senator Weaver. Senator Schofield. Senator Shelnut. Senator Jones. Senator Gudger. Senator Livingston.
Quorum is present, 9 members showing currently. So if we could go a touch out of order than the agenda to accommodate some folks' time frame. Representative Baker, HB 304, please, sir.
Okay, here we go. Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. HB 304, this is a solid waste management bill that has come before you earlier as a Senate companion bill that Senator Albritton then presented to the group that did already move out of this committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move favorable.
Motion for favorable on the second. Would the clerk call the roll? We get the roll established.
Senator Barfoot. Senator Butler. Senator Chambliss. Senator Figures. Senator Orr. Senator Roberts. Senator Fortier. Senator Weaver. Senator Schofield. Senator Shelnut. Senator Jones. Senator Gudger. Senator Livingston.
Aye. Bill receives a favorable report 9-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. Thank you for accommodating me, and thank you for your quick and swift action.
Thank you, sir. Senate Bill 172, Senator Singleton.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, this bill has already had a public hearing on it once before, and I don't know who asked for this, and I hope it wasn't someone who spoke the last time being redundant about what we're here for. We've explained this bill, and this is a new concept into wine shipment, but it makes it very difficult to do legislation, and when the agencies that are supposed to be handling it tells you that they're not trying to do anything to make it easy for business to be done in the state of Alabama. And that's just kind of touches me the wrong way when an agency can come back and tell you that even after we pass legislation, that they're not trying to make it easy for other people to do business in this state. And we're just trying to make some changes because it was new. And where we see some flaws are happening, we're just trying to catch them on the early end of this. And that's all we're trying to do is to, as we see the problems with the bill, these are just some things was kind of overlooked it. Some unintended consequences are happening in the application process. And we just want to just try to correct. This is not trying to change the bill itself. It's just more, for as we're concerned, it's technical and just trying to make it work so the process can work, so people can be able to have wine come directly to their homes as this bill will allow it to happen. And so if you need any further explanation, I'd like to bring Mr. Michael Sullivan up because he's worked with all of the parties and try to get it done. But other than that, you know, we're just willing to take an up or down vote from the committee.
Were there some substantial changes made, Senator, in the process of the bill since the first time we've heard it?
No.
Okay.
No. Not since you've heard it. No, there's no change has been made since you've heard it.
Okay.
No.
I think best.
Question.
Senator Butler has a question, Senator.
Senator Singleton, let me ask you one question. How does it differentiate between wet and dry counties?
I think that's a real question there because there is no real, definition with us that, and we're kind of waiting on an Attorney General's opinion on the wet and dry county concept there, and that's what was trying to clear some of those bugs up there.
I distinctly remember saying there were moist counties, no dry
moist
counties.
Yeah, there was no. You're right. There are no dry counties. They're all moist somewhere.
I remember the moist.
Yes, sir. They are. You're absolutely right.
Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would think that a dry county would mean counties whose businesses could not sell alcohol. And as I understand this bill, you would be able to order wine and have it shipped directly to one's personal home.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So I don't see where there would be a problem with people ordering wine who lived in a dry, quote unquote, county.
Moist.
Yeah.
Moist county.
Because, a few years ago, we gave a referendum to all 67 counties to be able to go wet or dry. Some cities selected to do it, and the rest of the county didn't. So that's how you get the moist. Or some county areas decided to do it, and some cities didn't do it. So
I got you.
That's how you got that. So
That's where you get the moist.
Yes,
Okay, thank
yes.
you. But I would think this is personal, so.
yeah.
I think if it's best, let's just move into the public hearing
Thank you,
portion of
Mr.
this and
Chairman.
hear from the two folks that have signed up through the public hearing. From the ABC Board, Bob Martin, would you come speak, Bob? Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address the senator's questions, as far as the dry counties, I think the counties themselves have several issues about anyone tampering with their wet or dry status. I know a lot of the rural dry counties really depend on the in lieu of money and some other benefits they get by remaining dry, even though the cities and towns may have voted wet. So that's a different issue. But the main thing I wanted to address, the law's barely been in effect 6 months. And the ABC board really worked to get rules promulgated. Our tax and audit people got, new forms developed. I stopped by our licensing division just before I came over here, and they told me that so far they have licensed 83 direct wine shippers to ship into Alabama. Now that doesn't sound like a tremendous number until you look at a recent, last 2 or 3 years change in the federal law that allows associated wineries to ship under one of these licenses. They said they didn't have an exact count, but one licensee alone had 1,400 associated small wineries and along the West Coast, California, Oregon, wherever. So it's several thousand currently are able to ship into Alabama. And as far as the fulfillment centers, we have so far licensed 16 of those. Now, I couldn't tell you where they're located. Some may be just across state lines, some may be regional, but they're, shipping depots where they can stockpile the wine and ship from it to whatever state that it needs to go to. So we would ask that, it was a big burden. I mean, it's what we do, but we had to really scramble to get those rules done and through the rule making process. We would ask for let this, as it currently stands, work a little longer and then look at, do we still have problems? Because from our perspective, there's a lot of people now currently licensed to ship wine to Alabama.
All right, thank you, Bob. Any questions of Mr. Martin?
I do.
Senator Figurs?
What exactly do you mean by more time to work? Do you need more than the 90 days from the time it will become enacted, or are you talking about more time to work on this bill before it actually comes back before the legislature?
Yes, I mean more time to let us operate under the bill that was passed last year, the system as it was set up. I know initially there were a lot of complaints, and part of that was us trying to get the forms, the new applications and all that were appropriate for because these people never actually enter Alabama. They're in, say, California. They deal maybe with UPS, ship their product. So there were a lot of things we had to change and redo, and we've got it up and running. The changes that this bill proposes to make, we're just going to have to go back and rearrange and reset up our system again, and it's just barely gotten in place and gotten to working. I'd say we didn't really get smoothly running it until around Christmas holidays into January, and to me, the licensing people just said they would like to operate under the old system a little while longer and then look at where there are problems.
But does this, and maybe Senator Singleton can answer this, does this bill bring in other licensees perhaps that are not included in the bill that Mr. Morton is referencing? So can someone tell me how this bill is going to conflict with what's already in place?
It just changes, in certain places, it changes the information that we require. We tried to adapt it, recognizing the fact they're out of state, they're not going to have a physical presence in Alabama, but we tried to adapt it to the current alcohol licensing laws, the way the system has been set up for a long time.
And you can't do that in 90 days?
Well, we could, but what I'm saying is we'll have to go back and redo the forms, the applications. These are manufacturers and they're coming from out of state, so the taxes have to be paid. There's just a lot of things, and a lot of the changes in this bill will require our people to go back and redo what they did last fall.
Senator Singleton, can you speak to that? Or Mr. Sullivan? I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, Senator. The basis of it is when they initially promulgated the application and the rules, they treated the out-of-state wineries as if they were in-state retailers, requiring a lot of things that really hindered the application process. This process was to start in August when the legislation turned on after last year. And it has been an arduous process, to say the least, in getting an application, for these out-of-state wineries to even go through the process and apply. So we thought our quickest and best remedy would be to come back and make some technical changes to the legislation from last year that would kind of take it out of the hands of ABC and say, okay, here's what you can require on the application, and go forward in that manner to make it a little easier to institute the intent of the legislation from last year. So that's the crux of this bill, this session.
And are all of these things on computer, Mr. Morton?
Most all of it's online now.
So wouldn't it be just a matter of programming?
Well, we don't have a lot of paid programmers. I mean, we work with Alabama Interactive and the people that, run our system. I don't know. As I say, looking at the numbers they gave me, the way, we currently have a lot of people. 5,000, 6,000 wineries licensed to ship into the state. Now, I'm sure there are some pending, and maybe they've hit a snag or something, but I think a lot of the things that Mr. Sullivan brought up about treating them as if they were an in-state, but a lot of that got resolved. We just worked that out. We had, I think, 3 Attorney General opinions to try to resolve some of the issues our folks had. We just, of course, it could be done. I think the system now is working. If we change it to any great extent, we're going to have new problems. Again, I would just ask that we ride with the system we put in place last year for a little while and see what, if anything, really needs to be changed. Because in my opinion, after talking to the licensing people today, I think it's working. I don't know how much wine is being shipped in. They report quarterly.
Okay, let me ask you this. To enact this bill, does that mean that the state of Alabama could potentially get more revenue?
From the new bill?
Yeah.
I don't think it would affect it either way. It's incumbent upon the wineries that ship into Alabama to report what they do and then to pay the taxes. The way the system's set up, under either version, if they wanted to cheat, they could. And we are
If they wanted to what?
to cheat.
To cheat.
Their taxes.
Okay.
And we're still developing ways to try to prevent that.
Mm.
But it's a lot more difficult when they never actually enter the state.
I got you. Thank you.
Senator Butler,
Thank
do
you,
you have
Mr.
a
Chair.
question? Thank you. Okay, no other questions. So, Senator Weaver, I'm sorry.
I have a question related to the moist counties because I represent one of those moist counties. Would this bring anything additional to those moist counties that the previous law did not? Based on the previous law, I see that it says it would go to a person whether they were in a dry or wet area. Is that correct?
I don't want it without everything in front of me, but generally speaking, the taxes on beer and wine are divided between the city and county roughly, say, I'm just thinking of, it's usually like out of say the 2% sales tax on alcohol, it'll be, I'm getting into spirits now. But normally it's like one gets 1.5 and the other gets 1/2 based on whether it was sold out in the county or in the municipality. I don't know, other than the fact that if you were shipping into purely dry counties, then there might be additional sales that wouldn't otherwise occur. Of course, that would be more revenue for someone.
So would ABC still have the enforcement authority in the dry county with the shipments going in?
We do. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but if you look in the black code book where it says alcohol laws for dry counties, chapter 4, that's really erroneous. That's a statewide prohibition laws that apply in all counties, wet and dry. If they're wet, then those are superseded by the ABC Act that created, the system we're talking about. But all of those still have application wet or dry. The problem with this is, as I said a moment ago, we are somewhat dependent upon the people to be honest and report what they do, what they ship in. That's where we're talking to FedEx, UPS, and the other one. Anyway, I apologize, I can't remember their name. And trying to, get some help from them on tracking this, because normally with alcohol taxes, you have reports from both directions and you just make sure they reconcile. And in this, we're not exactly there yet.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's sort of hard to say as far as the revenue, just what will happen.
Thank you.
Senator Barfoot?
Not to belabor the point, but to Senator Weaver's point, I think, can you name a moist county for me? County that's dry, municipality is wet. Coffee County, is that Coleman?
Coffee, Geneva, Coleman.
Let's use Coleman County. This bill would allow the sale of those wine and beer, I think, into the dry parts of the county.
Right.
And it would not give a local person the ability to set up a shop. I mean, this, because we're just talking about direct shipment, but if you.
Right. You could only, currently, you're allowed to possess a certain limited amount of alcohol at your home in a dry county, any dry area. And I guess this would sort of extend that to, you're allowed to go somewhere, buy it legally and bring it to your home. Like if the state trooper pulls you over, and I've heard them call before and say, well, he's not headed toward home, he's headed the other way and he's got alcohol, and they'd say, I'm gonna arrest him or I'm gonna pour it out or whatever. This would sort of extend that so that someone else could bring it to your home and then you could keep it there. But you're absolutely right. No one would be able to get a license at a convenience store or open a package store, anything like that. It would still be dry in that sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Godfrey? Thank you. Couple of minutes there.
Mr. Chairman. In response to Senator Singleton, I did not call the public hearing last year because I wasn't allowed in the State House, so I don't know how that got called. But and y'all went wild with alcohol last year, so I'm glad I can be back and speak on something like this. I'm concerned, quite concerned about the dry counties having access. It doesn't seem fair to me that a store in a dry county can't sell it, but they can order it from a store in California into a dry county. But secondly, those dry counties, I don't understand the legality of that. If they voted not to go wet, how can the state legislature allow alcohol to be purchased and delivered to the home of those in that county? My concern there is that you're circumventing the voters of that county who have said that they don't want to be wet. And so I throw that out to you as something that is of concern.
Senator Figures?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what about people who go to stores in other counties and buy alcohol and then bring it back to their dry or moist county or city?
They're doing
in their
it.
personal home.
Right. They're doing it. They're the ones that are going and purchasing it. I don't
Right.
think that's
but
right
these
either.
Are the same
but it's
people
going
that,
on. But this
these
is
are the
delivery.
same. Right, but they are ordering it just like we order things from Amazon to be brought to our house, the way we order groceries to be brought to our house. This, to me, this is like a personal decision of a person to make that decision for themselves, and they're not proliferating it, if you will, to the public or selling it at a storefront or whatever. Those people are still not allowed to do that in the dry counties.
Which brings up the issue you raised a moment ago, the fairness to those stores. If they can do it without having to even leave their home, then what about the stores in their own neighborhood that are being mistreated?
We already do it with Amazon.
Yeah, well,
I thank God for Amazon because I don't have to leave my house for a lot of the things that I want.
I understand, but alcohol is an addictive and mind-altering drug. It is not like other products.
But it's not for everybody, though.
Well,
it doesn't become addictive to everybody.
It has the potential.
But yeah, I used to drink and drink wine or cocktails or whatever, but I've chosen not to anymore. But that's my decision.
Right. I know stories though of people that decide. I don't know anybody that decided to become an alcoholic. They became an alcoholic because they took that first drink. So you don't know who is going to be and who's not. So I'm concerned about the young people, the children that might have access to this. So I'm sharing an issue and a problem, but y'all will do what you will do. So I'm praying for you.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Singleton.
I want y'all to understand that this is not about brick and mortar being able to sell. This is when you are in California or some other state, you find this nice bottle of wine that can't be sold in your state or not being sold in your state. If this was Barfoot or Rio Niti on ice or, whatever it is, whatever
Is that
it
a
may
new
be,
brand we don't know about,
sangria.
Barfoot?
Some of you can go down to, if you can go to the local store to get it, we would need this bill. But this is when you're out traveling and you go and you at the winery and you taste some wine that you really, really like, and they don't sell it in your state. Because even some of those carriers that may have 1,400 different brands, they might not have this one brand from a specialty little small winery that you're visiting while you're in Napa Valley somewhere. And you want to get you that, you want to send it back home so you and your friends can enjoy that bottle of wine. This is something very rare. This is not something you can just pick up from the grocery store, the corner store. That's why the corner store doesn't sell it. That's why the need for this bill is to be able to get it shipped back in.
But also they have to pay for the shipping charges
Yes,
as well, which
all of that.
can be pretty high. So, I mean, anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Singleton. So the public hearing is over with, so we're back on the bill as it stands. So what's the pleasure of the committee?
I'll move for favorable.
Have a
report.
motion for favorable by Senator Figurs. Is there a second? I'll second it. So all in favor of using the previous roll, say aye.
Aye.
Like sign, nay. Nay. Senator Fortier, would you like to be added to the roll? No. Okay. We'll call the roll. How about that?
Senator Barfoot,
Church mouse.
Senator Butler, Senator Chambliss, Senator Figurs,
Aye for choice.
Senator Orr, Senator Roberts, Senator Fortier, Senator Weaver, Senator Schofield, Senator Shellnut, Senator Jones, Senator Gudger, Senator Livingston.
Aye. Bill receives a favorable report 5-3-2. Thank you, Senator Singleton. So, thank you. Representative Ledbetter, HB 419, or excuse me, Senator Chastain.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have a brief summary of the bill. I think we have a public hearing. Is that correct?
We do, yes, sir.
And then I'm going to have to step out and I'll hand off to the bill sponsor because I have another committee with bills in it. But members, if you'll remember last year, we passed HB 220, which allowed K-12 schools to be exempt from Department of Construction Management for projects under $500,000. After that bill was passed, an executive amendment created a study group that addressed some of the concerns that the architects, the fire marshal, and contractors had with this bill. And so throughout the summer and the fall, the study group met and tried to address a lot of these issues, and in doing so, came back with, Representative Ledbetter came back with House Bill 419 that addressed a lot of these issues. So with that being said, I know we've got some that signed up for the public hearing and one's under a time limit here.
Let's
So
get the bill in place to move first. We have an amendment. Senator Gudger's offering an amendment, so.
Make a motion to approve. This just extends the date from the beginning to October 1st, 2022. I believe that's a favorable.
favorable, yes.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to add that amendment for.
I'll second the motion. So all in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Like sign, nay. Amendment's adopted, we're on the bill, and we'll be on the public hearing. If I could take a little leeway as to the sign-ups, I know Director Poole has somewhere to be. As a proponent, could I ask that Director Poole speak?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will stick around. I think this is an important bill, but I will kind of share a few thoughts with everybody. And I just want to kind of recognize the history of this bill. And at first, I'm in the unique position. I voted for the underlying statute last year. So kind of in revisiting it from a new role and a new perspective, just want to talk about some of that history. One is, I think these are minor modifications on the proposal. I think within the context of what we're really talking about, and I think in some sense, we need to not lose sight of the forest for the trees. We know we have some issues that bring us into this discussion, and I think a lot of the components of the discussion points today are not the overarching issues that we need to continue to focus on, and I think that's going to continue in terms of processes and timing as it relates to DCM review. But the statute last year required a task force to be constituted to look at any possible changes for this year, and that was the context of the discussion last year. Most of these changes follow and track, as I understand it, the recommendations of that task force. I was not a member of the task force. I know Leader Ledbetter and others can speak to that in a little more detail. But I'll answer any specifics that I can on the issues, but I want to bring us back to a baseline on these issues, because I know the costs are sensitive to everybody, certainly me as well. But we have to have independent code review on construction projects at schools. We require it of every commercial facility in every municipality in the state. And we have building codes for a reason, and it is required to have an independent code review. If we're not going to enforce the building code, we don't need to have a building code. And we should hold the state to the same standards that we hold everybody else in our institutions that house our children. So this is an important issue. The concerns are not to be dismissed, but the underlying dynamics are certainly being reminded as well. These are schools. Let me kind of mention too, if we find ourselves in a position that we're not having an independent, thorough code review on life safety and other issues in our schools, we're going to have liability problems, and the state insures our assets. So we're going to pay for it on the back end. Even if we save a little money on a code review issue or code compliance on the front end, we're going to pay in spades on the back end. And as a lawyer, and I'll try not to kind of go down the lawyer road because I know everybody's eyes can glaze, but if we find ourselves in a situation that a dugout, some small, new capital project proceeded without a code review or not an independent code review and somebody gets hurt, there's going to be some issues, some big liability, more than the cost that it would have taken to comply in our insurance costs. So I will not belabor this point, but I just returned from a trip where the state were meeting with all of our reinsurers. We insure over $70 billion of assets, most of those education assets. 1-2% change on our insurance costs the state tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. It came up in those discussions, do we enforce our code review on new construction and alterations? And the answer is yes, because if we don't, then the reinsurers know we're not building safe buildings, and their insurance capital is at risk, so our rates go up. Now, we could likewise pass these premium costs to school systems. So we may not be paying for code review, but we're going to end up paying more for insurance premium. So there's a circular nature to this. I don't want to minimize concerns, but I want us to keep an eye on the big picture here. There's some real significant issues that underlie this. I support the amendments. I think these are positive. I think it's a conversation that needs to continue because there are issues we need to continue to work on, and I certainly pledge that commitment. And I will stick around, Mr. Chairman. I think this is an important issue, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Director. So, as an opponent, Ryan Hollingsworth. So, Ryan.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We worked along with Leader Ledbetter and others last year to bring HB 220 before both bodies, and it passed, and it became effective February 1. So the bill that we passed last year has only been in place for 58 days, and now it appears that this bill would make a lot of changes, in my opinion. The way I read it, it would basically take us back to like it was before, prior to 220 passing, with the review, inspection, except for post-secondary and state parks. They would not be, they're not included in this bill as the way I read it. We would not have to pay fees for the review and inspection for those projects under $500,000. So if this passes, I don't know, there'll be costs associated with that, and I'm not sure where that would come from. And I heard a new nickname for you a while ago, so I won't repeat it, but that'll be for you to figure out. We do have, we do have inspections. We do have oversight without the construction management that I mentioned last year. We have architects. They provide periodic inspections. We hire construction management companies. We employ testing companies. So as school boards, we do have some of that already in place. I am I appreciate the amendment. I had expressed concerns on that with some issues that we'd have. In the study committee that met, we had asked for the cap to be increased from 500 to 750 due to inflationary cost that's been in place since this bill passed last year. And the life safety concern. We've asked for definitions of what's included in life safety. And for example, I had to replace a gym floor when I was a superintendent in Marion County because of flooding. And I had to have that drawn by an architect, submitted to DCM because it was a life safety issue, I was told. And I kind of disagree with that, but the way I see it, it would go back to be subjected to that as well. So we'd love for you to vote no, but if you have to vote yes, then please consider those three changes. Thank you.
Senator Figures, you have a question,
Chairman,
Ryan?
Yes, yes. You said the bill that we passed last year, was that the bill dealing with the construction projects within within education?
Yes, ma'am.
Where projects were being backed up for so long because they were waiting to go through this
There was some
process
delay,
or whatever?
so there was a lot of complaints about that. I will say, I think in this bill, and that helped me, there is a 30-day timeline that they have to review it and report that, give you recommendations within 30 days. There may have been an allowance for it to go up to 45, if I remember correctly, but that is addressed in this bill. But that was one of the concerns that was raised, and we came because it took a long time.
That was the
going
major
back and
reason for
forth.
the change as well,
That was a big
as I
concern.
recall.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Director Poole, with the items that he mentioned in terms of putting amendments on this bill, could you live with those? The $750,000, what, can you come back and, things you said you had asked for?
Just asked for this to increase the 500 to 750 and delay the effective date until October 1, and you already
we have
an
the amendment for
in
that.
place for that, so that was good. The other thing would be to omit the life safety component. We're okay with the ADA and the fire safety, we understand that, but just,
Well,
I've received some information today on life safety, but.
Well, when I think about safety and hearing Representative Poole talk about it, I think about the tornado that hit the school in Enterprise many years ago. You were here at that time, right, Representative Poole? So that's what I think about, and how tornadoes, unlike hurricanes, they can just come out of nowhere during the school day. So I think that we should definitely make sure that our school facilities are safe, and as much as possible to avoid losing life over that. So can you kind of expound on that as to what, and where you all can get to a common ground of agreement?
Sure.
Okay.
So just, I'll remind everybody, we're talking about projects under 500,000. So we're not talking about building a whole new school or a gymnasium. We're kind of talking about some smaller projects here. So I
Okay.
think when we talk about life safety and tornadoes, I want us to kind of keep, we're dealing with a pretty narrow construction project scope here. I think we would prefer for the life safety review to be part of any review.
Is there a definition of life safety as he
It is defined.
questioned?
Fire safety and life safety compliance means compliance with those provisions of the Uniform Minimum Building Standards Code adopted by the Division of Construction Management pursuant to the law that relate to risk of electrical or fire hazards, risk of injury or illness. That's the quote from the bill. I prepared a list of what would be included in fire and potentially life safety review. I'm glad to distribute that, Senator, if you would like for me to.
Would that make you feel better if that language was a part of the bill?
That is part of the bill.
I'm saying with the list that you have.
Well, this is not an exhaustive list. It's an example list, but.
Well, I just, when we pass statutes that leaves interpretation to be a number of things, you leave open a Pandora's box, or a potential Pandora's box, if you will, that could be argued either way. So that when we make the statutes, if we want to do certain things, I support putting the language in there exactly to what the intent of
I agree.
of that law.
And I think we do that in the form of definitions, but there's always some interpretation, the reporting. And I will, so to the life safety, Leader Ledbetter brings us to a different part of the bill that may be relevant to this, but this proposal brings amendments in that also requires reporting of every project that DCM reviews related to this scope, and a report of all the life safety issues they cite, and to categorize those in other code by fire, safety, electrical, so that we can begin to learn and get some visibility into what types of situations are being cited. I mean, there are some horror stories out there,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I could imagine.
But one horror story doesn't mean we shouldn't review for life safety, building code compliance in our school facilities that are open to public and children.
Oh, I agree.
So we think we have a workable definition. We think the reporting will give us more visibility into it. If we need to modify that as that reporting comes forward and we learn more, I think certainly everybody's at the table aiming at the same objective. We don't want to waste money on construction.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
wants to do that.
Right.
But we want to be safe and we want to comply with business.
Absolutely. And I will vote the bill out of committee, but I definitely want to work with the other entities who do have problems to see if,
Sure.
we can bring a level of comfort to everybody involved.
Sure. And we would prefer for the cap on these projects to remain at projects under 500,000. We being the Department of Finance and the Division of Risk Management, we would ask the committee to remain at the $500,000 level. But that's from the perspective.
Well, can I hear a little bit more of the argument, Mr. Chairman? About
Absolutely. Senator
the
Gudger
five-
has a question.
Between the 500 and the 750.
We've
and
got two
why
more.
one
We've
should
got
be.
two more speakers on this, if you don't mind.
I
Let's do that.
understand. I understand, Mr. Chairman, but I had questions as a member of this committee. And you don't usually cut the guys off, or you chairmen don't usually cut the guys off when they have to talk.
I've tried not to cut you off. I'm sorry. So,
Chairman Figures, I'm going to follow up on the same questioning real quick, if that's all right, if I can take that one step. Sir. That's a little rude right there. Director Poole, the same line of questioning and that I had, and going through this being my wheelhouse and in my background, and I was looking at the 500,000. Did the commission that was put together to look at all this look at inflation costs? Because if you go buy a 2x4 a year ago, you're at $9. Now you're at $33, and so it's just something just for us to look at as far as costs, and that's why the 750 I think came into place. I just want to know that y'all address that, and that's kind of where we are. Where does y'all's input on that?
Essentially, we did talk about it, and it was brought up in committee, but it was voted down. But at that time, it was before inflation really hit on lumber and prices like they are today. I mean, we've tried through the process over the last year to come to an agreement where everybody'd be okay with it. And I think we've kind of handled it in a way that everybody's had a seat at the table, and hopefully we can get where we need to be. I like the bill where it was at, I'm not going to lie, but I think, with the concerns that the director has shared with me and the committee, we went through the process and we did it the way I think it should have been done, and I feel like we're at a place where we need to be.
we have a couple of other speakers that are proponents. Heather Page. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Heather Page. I'm a consulting professional engineer from Anniston, Alabama. I served as the engineering representative on the study group. The study group had architects, 2 contractors, superintendents, Department of Education, architects, fire chiefs. We had a broad representation, and I had a whole long list of things I'm going to say. And but as far as the amendments that have been proposed, I will say that delay in implementation, I would definitely not be in favor of. The study group was formed due to industry concerns with regards to life safety and no review by Department of Construction Management and Inspection. As part of that study group, we were tasked with surveying other states' laws and legislations, federal requirements. We sent surveys out to all 50 states to ask what their review and inspection process was, and we received respondents from 20 states. Out of those 20 states, every state had some type of review process for a publicly owned building, and all but one had some type of inspection process. The one state that did not specifically noted on the form that it was actually a problem in the state that construction inspection for conformance to code is not required. This was noticeable in the 2018 earthquake. Buildings and municipalities where there was a code compliance inspector experienced significantly less damage than buildings not inspected. So I know we don't have earthquakes, but we do have tornadoes. That was brought up. We have a lot of life safety issues. The other thing that was brought up was the limit, raising that construction limit. We did talk about inflation. Like I said, we had 2 contractors, architects, engineers. Right now, cost estimating, it's almost like guesswork, you know, with costs constantly changing. We are constantly adjusting those cost estimates. However, no one on that study group felt like, or it was, I think we had 1 or 2 who wanted to raise that limit, but it was voted down. And there again, that concern was life safety. Defining life safety, that's $1 million question. We have tons of building codes, and each code affects life safety. Even our boards of licensure, we have executive director for the Board of Architects here. We have the executive director for our Board of Licensures for engineers and land surveyors here. I know my board is tasked with my Board of Licensure that for engineers and land surveyors, they are tasked with similar life safety compliance and protecting public and health welfare. You can't narrow that down to one specific code. For mechanical engineers, which is what I am, when I do a simple roof change out, I have to make sure that I have wing clips on it. If it's a gas unit, I have to make sure in a classroom I have carbon monoxide detectors. If I'm doing lab sinks in a science classroom in a high school, I have to make sure I have the acid neutralization, chemical fume hoods, things like that. All of this affects life safety. Our air conditioning units can distribute smoke, block egress paths, things like that. So there again, that's a life safety component. We can't narrow down life safety to just electrical or shock hazards. It has to encompass egress path, it has to encompass structural elements, mechanical. I'm going too long, so I will wrap that up. But DCM provides, with this bill, it would be a free service. It would, give you a third-party verification, no cost to the owner. I'm not sure what the reason would be not to do that. There again, we would be opposed in delaying the implementation, because right now you have buildings and jobs going on without any oversight since that went into effect.
Any questions of Ms. Page? Okay, thank you very much. So last speaker's proponent is Trace Starr. Trace, you still with us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I represent Alabama Associated General Contractors. I've provided each of you with a letter of support from 2 individuals who are members of our organization who actually served on the study committee. Those were the 2 contractors referenced. I won't rehash that letter. I'll simply say that there are 2 main reasons why we support HB 419. First and foremost, it's the result of numerous meetings, suggestions, and revisions that were undergone over 6 months to a year of meetings in that study group that has been mentioned. Difficult compromises were reached in creating this language. And then secondly, as has already been said, DCM exists to protect the citizens who are in these public buildings and our schools. In a state where extreme weather events have become the norm, reviewing construction projects for fire and life safety can save lives. And so keeping that in the bill would be something that we support. We're grateful to have been able to serve on the study group that was created by last year's bill. We appreciate Representative Ledbetter in working with us and Senator Chasteen in carrying this. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Trace. Any questions of Trace? Representative Ledbetter? We are back. The public hearing is over with. We're back on the bill. Are there any questions of the bill sponsor? Or the bill sponsor have some comments?
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment one thing, and I'll be brief, but I think the negotiation we had over the past year was in good faith. And I certainly appreciate everybody's input. I think it has certainly moved our building construction forward in the state of Alabama. There's no question about that. And I think it's added some positivity. Some of the things that you had asked about, Senator, the tornado and the wind numbers are in this bill, so that's already been addressed. I do want to make one thing clear. I guess misinformation is something I don't like, but the bill before it had inspections. It was inspected by the architects, it was inspected by the builders, and it was inspected by the building management. So it was already there. What we've agreed to in this compromise is that DCM will come in and do another inspection. So these buildings under 500,000 should be very well inspected. The biggest issue I think we've had in this whole process, nobody knows what life safety is. So I think the issue that Chairman Director Poole come up with was the fact, well, let's record it and let's get it back to the legislative body and to his office, and let's find out what they're marking as life safety, because it looked like in the past, if they found an issue, it became a life safety issue. Well, that's not the case. So we need to be more defined on where we are and what we're doing. And then also the time frame of when the jobs are being done needs to be quicker, because it's costing us millions of dollars on the delays that was being caused. So I think all this has been worked out. I think, it's something we'll have to see. But I do know that with the bill that has been brought forth, that they do have to report back to the body of the legislative body. So we'll get to see firsthand what happens. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the bill sponsor, or what's the mode of the committee? Motion for favorable and seconded. All in favor of using the previous roll, say aye. Aye. Like sign nay. The bill receives a favorable report. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Yeah, bill is amended. Excuse me. That's correct. House Bill 347, Parker, Representative Moore. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. This is a economic development bill relating to community development districts in a moist county. It is pertaining to Limestone County, and it is a golf course that has been purchased that has 126 homes on it currently. And there is a developer that is wanting to wind up putting about 420 homes around the golf course, and they have a clubhouse where they want to be able to serve dinner. It's way out in the rural area, so there's not very easily trafficked for restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And this would allow them to be able to serve alcohol just on the premises.
Are there any questions, the representative? Had a motion favorable and a second. All in favor say aye. Like sign nay. Bill receives a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Figures, or HB 48, are you going to handle it, or are you going to let Representative Brown handle it? I'm sorry.
Yes, Representative Brown is here.
Representative Brown, KO.
I will offer the amendments when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. House Bill 48 is a bill that I'm sponsoring for the Alabama Board of Funeral Service. At the recommendation of the Sunset Committee, this bill would establish the Funeral Board Property Acquisition Fund at no cost increase to anyone. It takes the money that the board was paying in rent and places it in this fund to be used for maintenance and upkeep of the board offices, which we currently own. House Bill 48 also simplifies language related to various licenses, certificates, and registrations issued by the board. Instead of naming each license, it changes the language to say licensee or licensed by this chapter. It increases the board member compensation for from $50, which was set in 1975, to $75. It allows the board to have up to 4 associate directors in the event that pre-need and cemetery regulations are moved over to the board. It sets the due date for license renewals to September the 1st and allows committees and subcommittees under the board. It sets the passing score on exams in terms of an apprenticeship to be set by rule of the board in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act. It updates course requirements for licensure to the current curriculum in accordance with the American Board of Funeral Service Education. And this bill would require all funeral establishments beginning October the 2nd, 2023, to have a minimum of $1 million liability insurance.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Figures.
if I might, I sit on the Sunset Committee, and every 4 years, or whenever the Sunset Committee deems it on each licensure board, they're audited by the state. And the items that come out, the findings in that audit come out, which we ask those boards to make changes. And sometimes those changes can be done through policy. Others, they need to be changed by statute. And this is one. So this is basically like a housekeeping bill, so to speak. So with that, I do have one amendment that I'd like to add to this. And this was, it comes via Representative Mike Jones in the House to make sure that we're consistent with the language dealing with the legal age of majority. So I'd like to offer that amendment. I think you have a copy of it.
That would be Amendment 2.
Yes, I will not be offering the other amendment.
So that would be the one that is marked Amendment number 2 that deals with the, as you said, the legal age of majority.
Yes, so you have a copy, okay.
Thank you, she has it. Okay, so we have an amendment that's been offered in dealing with the legal age of a majority, and that you said that came from Representative Jones?
Yes,
From the
at his
Rules Committee in the
recommendation.
House. So,
And it's cleaning up the language to make it consistent.
have a motion, motion
Thank you.
from Senator Gudger, so all in favor of adoption of the amendment?
Aye.
So all in favor say aye, so like sign nay. Bill, the amendment is adopted, we're back on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for favorable report using previous role.
So there was another amendment to be offered. Are we withdrawing that amendment at this time?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Didn't get that loop, so. All right, so we have a motion for favorable on the bill by Representative Senator Figure, excuse me. I didn't
Yes,
mean
if
to-
other
didn't
things
mean to
are worked out before it makes it.
Didn't mean to cuss at you there.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if some other things are worked out before it gets to the floor, it might get on the floor.
Okay, all right, I think that makes someone in the audience feel better.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion